So, the thing about my husband's story is that it's really difficult to talk about because um, his ex wife has made it a crime for us to say like what happened in her past that might have made her um, react to Jeremiah like she has. Like we've tried to make her aware that she's probably projecting onto him from issues that she's had individually. And she doesn't like to hear that because she doesn't like to be reminded of what happened to her in her past because she's kind of been she had a very traumatic childhood. Now, I understand that she might be past it, personally, that she might be past it, and that's why she doesn't want it brought up. The thing is we don't bring that up because of her. We bring it up because even though she's past it, doesn't mean that Edgar's past it. It doesn't mean that we're past it. Because a lot of the pain that she went through did get projected onto Jeremiah. She'd been molested by men. She had been taken advantage of them by them. She was raised by a single father because her mom had killed herself when she was young. So she had this very one-on-one relationship with just a man, just her and her father. And there came this point where I think that she got herself to this place where she despised men in a sense. I think Jeremiah came into her life and was a healthy force. They were married for 4 years. He never harmed her. We think in many ways she wished he had harmed her so that she could have had more leverage and more ammo to use against him. But, I mean, she built a business whenever she was with him. She stopped being bulimic. She had a child to live for. I mean, they argue. Jeremiah didn't want her to do a bunch of the things she did, but she was able, nonetheless, to do them anyway, is the point. Oftentimes when he would say, no, I don't want to do something, that would be cause for her to want to do it even more. But it's still proof that she had power in the relationship. She could overpower somebody else's ideas, somebody else's desires, somebody else's will, somebody else's wants. That's not something that I had, for example, in my relationship with my ex-husband. If he didn't like something that I didn't do it. He would easily shut me down. It wasn't like, he doesn't like me doing something, so I'm going to do it anyway. I would listen to him because I was in a true controlled, abusive relationship. But I mean, the world we live in, everything is always flip-flopped. It's not really what it seems. So we think that she just kind of got to the end of the relationship. She didn't want to be married anymore. We've since found out that Jeremiah is autistic. She said that he was bipolar, which is an easy way to just call him the victim. He can't control his emotions. He's angry. He's violent even. He's never had a history of violence. He never...
The aggressor, not the victim.
Yeah, she wanted him to be the aggressor, not the victim. So he's never had a history of violence. He's never hurt anybody. He didn't hurt her. She tried to say that he domestically abused her from one instance where he took the phone out of her hands because he was trying to have a conversation with her. But even then, that was at the very end of their relationship. She also said that he stood in the doorway and wouldn't let her leave the room. But again, that's one of those things where moments are getting heated and he's in this awkward place where he's not sure what's happening. His marriage is breaking apart and he's trying to get answers. But the cops weren't called or anything, right? You just eventually got out of her way. Right? Okay, so, he never touched her, never laid a hand on her. She tried to say that he raped her at the end, which is also untrue. Turns out that he hadn't used a condom. and she called that rape because she thought that he was trying to get her pregnant again in order to keep her and like make her stay in the relationship. But I mean, from my understanding, from all of my investigation on it, she didn't like condoms, or at least that's what she joked about whenever people asked, how they got pregnant with Edgar. She just kind of like joked about it, saying, "We don't like condoms, ha ha ha." So, I mean, I think there was a precedent of that, and this is somebody that Jeremiah's married to. So, I mean, like, if that wasn't a conversation that they were having, then I don't know why he would have known. So anyway, all of that stuff got dropped, but those were instances where she was kind of like searching and looking for things to hold against him, to say that he abused her, and these are grounds for why he shouldn't have his son. She tried to like claim family violence. All of that stuff got dismissed because there was no finding for it. Edgar and Jeremiah had a really great relationship. Jeremiah took care of him from infancy. I'm not saying that Sarah didn't do anything, but I know that Jeremiah fed him as an infant. He was bottle fed. He loved feeding him. He loved, getting to hang out with his son. They played video games. As he got older, he would take him to the park every day. I think if Sarah just needed a break, Jeremiah would be there to take their son and do things with him. And of course, Sarah started her business at a certain point, and I think, Jeremiah, you would watch Edgar then as well, right? Yeah, so it was just kind of like, I think anytime Jeremiah wasn't working, he was spending time with Edgar. And some of that too is the isolation that ended up like happening in the marriage. They moved away to San Antonio, I think, for the last year. Did you live in San Antonio for like a year?
Yeah.
And Jeremiah didn't have any friends there. He just had his wife, Sarah, and he had his son. And so a lot of his time was spent with Edgar. And so there's a lot of our story, of his side of the story, that's really difficult because she filed a protective order against him because he was texting her after the relationship ended. And some of that was spurred on by me because I was going through all my stuff with my ex-husband, and I wanted Jeremiah to reach out to Sarah because I wanted to know that she had more compassion in her than what she was willing to share, because she was trying to brand Jeremiah with all these bad things, which is, she was able to do some of that. She got stuck with supervised custody, for example, because he didn't have a lawyer. He went in there saying, "Well, I'm an honest man. I have done nothing wrong." And Sarah knows who I am. She knew this man for who he was. They were together 4 years, or, almost 5 or something? 4 years?
4 years.
Yeah. And she knew that he wasn't a bad guy. She had messaged him saying Edgar's inconsolable. She wanted him in Edgar's life. I think she really didn't start getting crazy on Jeremiah, and I mean crazy loosely, like in the terms of like crazy using the legal system, until after I got involved. And a lot of that was just because I was so plagued by my issues from Tim. There was a lot of brainwashing going on in my marriage because I was actually an abused victim. Okay, that's the difference. And she really didn't start getting crazy until I got involved. And so I think the legal attacks were more about me than they were about Jeremiah. She didn't want me around their son. The difference, though, is that the things that were making me crazy were, all of Jeremiah's going through this huge case, and I felt so insecure being with him because, just even knowing that he had supervised custody, I thought that was the most horrible thing. And I was insecure about having him be around my daughter, or what Tim would say because of that, or what the courts would say. I found out later on that none of that was a big deal because those things happen all the time in family law, that people get supervised custody. All of that stuff happens because normal people are in those places. I thought they were for convicts and for felons, and they're for normal people. And most of the time, it's because the parents can't agree, on a they can't divorce peacefully because humankind is not evolved to that level. There's always the bitterness and the anger and the destruction and the need for money and the greed for money. There's all these forces still operating in the legal system and with human beings that divorce because they're not mature enough to handle the divorce, that it just folds in on itself. And you have all these people in those systems that really aren't bad people or bad parents. And that's kind of the nature of parental alienation. And that's what we suffer with. So, yeah, Tim was able to continue to abuse me. I was really mild with him and meek in the legal system with him. I really didn't want him to lose. I wanted to show him that I wanted to work with him. I was still in this abused paradigm mindset, okay? And Tim used Jeremiah to get Esther further and further and further and further away from me, because at the end of the day, he too, not only does he hate me, but he hates me even more now because of Jeremiah, because I'm with Jeremiah. And so Tim has his own mental issues. Both of these people really do. And I'm not trying to say that, oh, they're so mentally unstable, okay? Like, I think that there is a mental instability that is natural in this state that society is within. Okay, so when I say that I think that they suffer from mental illness, I'm not saying that they're mentally, these people can live in life. They can do life. They take care of their business. They take care of their house and their chores and their bills and their car and all of that stuff. Okay, they take care of the children in a reasonable way. The children's like physical needs are cared for. They get all kinds of activities and fun things and, whatever they get, you know what I mean? So the physical needs of everybody is taken care of. Okay, so it's not like they're not mentally incapacitated in the way that you might think of mental illness. It's more like a sickness that is interwoven in our society. Any healthy society would not allow things like this to happen, that the children would be kept away from their other parents simply because these other parents, us, we have suffered through the devastation of divorce, which pulled our children away from our lives. And somebody in that moment of time is able to take advantage of the moment and grab hold of the kids, and then it sets a precedent for the future. And nobody wants to work to forgive. And I think that's the real mental illness here, is that these people are not seeking to understand our story. They're not seeking to forgive us. And ultimately, it's the children who are missing out. And I do not think these people have the capability for dealing with the situation with our children. They're more inclined to just sit and wait. And if we come back and try to work things out, they're always just going to pull the children further and further away from us, because it's always going to be a fight with them. It's always going to be a war, and it's always going to be a competition. Things that we don't give two shits about. We don't care about who has the most money and who has the most grandeur and who has the we don't care about that stuff. We care that our children are able to know one another. We have two other children. We have Charity and we have Ian. Can you get her? She's screaming at the top of her lungs. Just shut the door at least, please.
It is shut.
It's shut? Oh my gosh. Can you check on Ian too? Just that he is not covered up by pillows, because Charity was doing that. Sorry. Wife with a 3-year-old. So it's just been really devastating for us. I have 2 other kids that aren't going to get to know their older siblings. And I think about in the future, I feel like I went through this as a child. And I feel like everybody, they think that I just want all this vanity and all this recognition for myself. I don't want recognition. I don't really care that much about it. I want the ability to reconcile things for the children. And I don't think these people know what they're doing when it comes to kids. I feel like I've been devoting my life to the study of children. I have a degree in psychology, and I also am now studying to be a teacher. I've worked with daycare. I have 2 other children. I feel like I am surrounded by kids. I am the youngest in my family, so I've always had a connection to being the child, being the baby, being, I just have a connection to children. And I don't know what more I have to prove to make these people try to understand us. And I don't think that they have the capacity to do something like this, to own up. We have shown ourselves willing to share. They literally have our children right now. We gave our children away easily, because with the hopes that they would have the maturity to know how to admit to anything and accept any form of responsibility if we showed them how to do it. But they're not. It's just going in a cycle. It's just continuing like this. And it's the most difficult because we are stuck with this and we have it going on both sides. And I feel like our situation is unusual because of this, because we are suffering from two cases of parental alienation. Our exes have intertwined. Anyway, let me get back to, at one point she filed a protective order against Jeremiah because he was just excessively communicating with her. And some of that was because of me, because I was like, listen, like, I can't see my daughter right now. My ex-husband is being crazy. Can you do something to stop this, But I mean, it's easier for her to just believe that I'm crazy too without understanding why I'm acting this way. She's not looking deeper. And that's her flaw. That's a flaw of hers. I messaged her. I told her, I apologized for what happened, that we were going through. Like, I was confused. I was still under the brainwashing of my ex-husband. Like, please have compassion and understanding in anything. And none of that went anywhere with her. Like, as far as she's concerned, I'm crazy and I'll never be around her son. That's, I think, the word she's even spoken. She told my mom things like that. And my mom has also told me that they've made a pact with one another, that they will never, they will help one another to always keep our children away from us. And anytime Jeremiah tries to tell his side of the story, she tries to use the protective order against that, saying that we're not allowed to talk about her history, because she did suffer with schizophrenia in her past. It's really traumatizing to be molested as a child and to be, all of that stuff. So I get that she wants to put all that stuff behind her and she's a new person, but she forgets that Jeremiah helped her to get to that place where she could put everything behind him. She's dumped it all onto him, and then she doesn't want to acknowledge any of it for the sake of their child. And she just wants to move on like this and act like, but it's not complete. The story is not finished. The work is not done. And all of this has to do with money as well. These people lacked control their whole life, and now they get the control over the money, and they get to do whatever they want with it and raise our kids with however they want to without us involved. And they're not doing it correctly, and it will hurt the children. And that's our biggest insecurity. And it's our biggest struggle, mental struggle. Anyway, that's it. That's his side of the story. It's insecure to talk about because she tries to use any sort of legal system she can against us. It's called legal abuse. But that is the legitimate side of the story. And I truly hope that God will protect us. I've had insecurity from what they could try to do with our next children, and try to say that we're not taking care of our next kids. So it's been a deep insecurity because these people just know what to do when it comes to winning, and they like to win at all costs. Doesn't matter who it hurts. So anyway, that is that. We have a beautiful, wonderful home. It's full of children's toys. Kids are coming over all the time. That's our life. We have a good one. We're normal people. Normal people suffer through these things, I guess, sometimes. But I just pray that their narrative can end in Jesus' name. That's all I can do all the time, every day.